Plastic pollution. Wherever you go outdoors, you find it. And there's no shortage of attention for it in the news either. Dying sea life, microplastics, and tons of waste in the ocean. There's so much bad news on it, it can be quite overwhelming. Or at least, that was my experience. This is me, Robin. Straight out of university, I decided to close the books for a while and set out on an adventure, in search for some good news. A cycling adventure that would take me all the way from the north of Norway to Portugal, in search for interviews with Europe's initiatives against plastic pollution. This was going to be a bit of a challenge. I had zero knowledge of filming, had never cycled this far on my own, and I thought it would be a good idea to bring a surfboard with me along the way. And most importantly, I was planning to get my hands dirty as well. Each day I traveled, I would fill one bag with plastics myself. So there it was. I planned to cycle, to surf, and clean Europe's coastline, in search for inspiring work against plastic pollution. A Recycle Surfari. Now only one thing could stop me. I didn't have a bike. With the paint job done, it was ready. A custom-made bike and trailer for the surfboard. With all things packed, I was a happy man and ready to go. And that's when I got the first good news. CleanHub decided to help me out, a company that prevents plastic from entering the ocean by working with local communities. For each kilometer I cycled, they would recycle 1 kilogram of plastic. So, at the end of my trip, that would be the weight of 2 adult killer whales in plastic, or 100 times me. The first interview would be with Norwegian NGO The Green Warriors in Bergen, and the start would be above the Arctic Circle, 1500 kilometers up north. So time to get going. Bude. From here I would speed my way down, all the way to Lisbon. Well, that was the plan. When I started this trip, I was warned. Whatever you do, pack light. So once again, it turned out that I'm a complete idiot. Pushing the bike and surfboard wasn't the fastest way to get to Lisbon, and filming everything didn't speed things up either. But hey, it's not about the speed, but about enjoying, right? And when I did cycle, it was no doubt the most epic ride I had ever done in my life. Norway was a wonderful challenge. From the ascents, the bike repairs, and the distances I had to travel. So by the time I reached Bergen for my first interview, I had traveled over 1500 kilometers and collected 25 bags full of plastic. It was never hard to find, and filling a bag each day was easier than I had hoped. But some days were especially shocking. When I started this trip, I knew there would be a lot of plastic, and I was prepared, but still there's these moments when you're really shocked by what you see. And stuff down here, I thought it were pebbles actually. Here you can clearly see that this stuff, which is quite big in the beginning, breaks down in all these tiny little bits in between the weeds. It's so hard to get out of the water. Seeing these amounts of trash, I wondered where to begin. About time to meet an organization in Bergen that is leading the way. The Green Warriors of Norway. In their wooden headquarters, I sit down with Ruben Oddekov.
The Green Warriors of Norway is the environmental organization in Norway that is working on the widest angle of different environmental issues. Fighting plastic and overusing of plastic and plastic pollution has sort of been with us all along the way. One of the main things that we have been doing for fighting the marine pollution is educating kids. We have been traveling all of the Norwegian coast, from Oslo in the south and to Kirkenes in the north, visiting small places all along. Because what we have been doing is that we are living in the small community and we are cleaning and going in and out. People can see us. There is trash on the beach where we are coming in. We're bringing it in. People can see it, and everybody gets this, wow, shit. Yeah. All of this in our nearby nature. Shit, I didn't realize. I haven't seen it. I've seen some, but wow. But in the same time, we have been having school classes from all of these places into the ship, having a school session there, talking about marine pollution. It's really easy with kids because they're really catching the problem. Grown-ups tend to have bigger issues with understanding that what harms nature harms them, but kids are really good to work with on that because they really have a witborn understanding of that we are part of nature. I hope that getting this message to the kids before they sort of loses it really helps to connect it. And I think that taking them out of the classroom onto a ship or down to a beach, the best even if they can go and clean something, because when they handle the problem and been doing some cleaning, then they have this ownership to the problem. Yeah. And that's when your mindset starts to change. Yeah. And that's what this is all about. We really want to make a change, to do things, to show more than telling. And there is a lot of talking in the environmental world. People tend to forget to show, lead by example as far as you can.
Down to the south for the next interview with a very special artist. By now I was dying to get the board in the water. Although it certainly did get wet from time to time.
So a Norwegian guy yesterday on a bike, he told me it's going to rain until 7. When a Norwegian guy tells you it's going to be shit, it's probably going to be shit.
Feet are wet, they've been wet for a week.
The tent is wet for a week as well, and my sleeping bag is starting to get really wet as well.
And no surfing, there's no waves.
But hey, the more south you go, the drier it gets, right? So when the sun broke through, it certainly looked more like the bright side of life. My surf hopes were now on surf spot Lista. Don't get too excited. I didn't find a single wave in sunny Lista, but there at the lighthouse tower I found something else instead. A bunch of llamas, but more importantly, artist Solveig Eikeland had built a globe out of plastic waste. The plastic globe made me think, there's so much plastic around. Where should it end up instead? When I filled a bag with plastic waste, I would dispose of it the best I could. But still I knew most of it would be simply burned after disposal. What else can you do with this stuff? One wonderful way would be revealed in the next interview with Inge from Sjølove Plastvangst.
I saw this documentary from Chris Jordan, which is a photographer. These birds in the Midway Islands, which had like, you know, they were decomposing right on the ground, and what you would see was just the stomach, and you would see the plastic inside. And you know, if you just follow that thought and think about all the different animals in our whole system, and all of them has been exposed to plastic, and I just got really angry, and I figured, what can I do, you know? That's where it started. This is like approximately 1 kilo of polypropylene plastic, probably from somewhere around here. Basically, I collect all that I find of trash, and I shred it up, and I melt it down and make new stuff, basically.
Lucky me, that day was a building day, and so I got to see the magic happen. Now that the vases were in the oven, I got to hear his thoughts on plastic.
Right now, we're using plastic in the wrong way. It's like it's basically a design failure, you know. It's like it's not working the way it's supposed to be, because I mean, after we use it now, it's just like a zombie product that's lying around forever and just messing up everything. So it's like the way we use it now is definitely not the way to use it in the future. I mean, when you're mixing plastic in with something else, and then you put on labels and stuff, and then it just makes it harder to use it again. There need to be a cycle. You need to make products in containers that are sturdy enough to be recycled and go around, like use it again and again. Like milk bottles, like the milkman from back in the day. Yep. That's the way we should. That's, in my point of view, the way to use plastic if we are supposed to use it.
Would you be glad if there's no more work for you to be done?
Yeah, that would be terrific, but seems like I got something. Yeah, we got a lot of work ahead of us.
Only 280 kilometers to go to the next interview in Sandefjord. It had been an absolute pleasure to meet a laid-back and inspiring guy like Inge, which was a bit of a lucky shot because I had not met a living soul for weeks on end. There had been some rare encounters with actual human beings, a fellow cyclist, 2 German surfers who helped me out cleaning the beach, and Vladimir, the knife-throwing Russian. But most days I spend on my own. The feeling of loneliness was never far away. But in return, Norway gave me many stunning moments of absolute stillness. Still, no matter how beautiful it was, there was always trash to be found. It was trash like this that made me realize it's also about creating awareness. And that starts at educating the kids. My next interview would be about just that. Amidst their collection of plastic waste, I couldn't wait to hear the story of Kari Preskaart and Aster Andersen.
We create plastic birds and fish with children, teaching them about plastic in the ocean and the environment through creative workshops where they have a positive experience with a very negative problem. We don't cut the plastic, we use it as we find it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a puzzle and they have to find the right shapes and it really makes them have to collaborate and work together. But after we photograph them, we take it apart again. So it's kind of like a mandala, like this idea that it's always shifting form and the plastic is reused again and again and it can create thousands of opportunities, and it's a way of looking at the plastic as a resource in this way.
The coast shapes the plastic in this appealing form that we need. So it sort of creates the art material. Yeah. So there is a message from the ocean too in this kind of work, because the ocean has shaped the materials and the ocean is desperate to make it try to look like nature. It rounds it, it forms it, you know, smooths it, yeah.
The colors change.
So nature do what nature do. We also find one thing in Norway that I would like to mention, since we are in Norway. Yeah. These are cartridges from hunting. These cartridges were made out of paper and had wax on the outside. You could kill just as many pigeons with one of these then as you can today. But this stays for thousands of years, and the cartridges that I learned to shoot with, they're a long time gone. Product design is a major key to solve the plastic pollution problem.
We're trying to make something that looks beautiful, but the message is quite strong. Yeah. And sad, so there's this duality and this contrast that we're trying to focus on.
It's aesthetic to look at, and you get mixed emotions when you approach this work. You see a nice bird or a colorful fish, you step forward, you get closer, and you get a more disgusting feeling, because then you can see what it actually is. Mm-hmm. It's plastic waste. We focus on the animals that are most threatened by this plastic waste, and it's a sort of a homage to the fish and the birds. We can never get rid of plastic, but we have to learn to live with it and to deal with it in a much more sustainable way. We should full throttle on that. I mean, it's our future, man.
With all Norwegian interviews behind me, it was time to head to Sweden by boat, from where I would make my way down to Denmark for an interview with fishnet recycler Plastics. Finally, some rest. The 35 long days in the saddle and short nights had made me look like I was in the midst of a zombie apocalypse. So there, among the knitting grannies, I slept my way into Sweden. With no interviews in the country, there was only one stop to make. There was an actual surf spot in Sweden. I had to see this with my own eyes. And so I cycled and cleaned my way through Sweden's agricultural landscape. But when I finally arrived in Varberg for an epic wave check, it was, well, slightly less epic than I had hoped. Sweden's sea was flat as a knäckebröd. And so, instead, I had a radical lake surf session. That's when I started to see massive flocks of birds heading south, which could only mean one thing. Winter was coming. So time to move on to Denmark. From the stories I heard, Denmark was flat and quiet. But there was a wildness to it I didn't expect. And there, behind the dunes, I had another chance at surfing. Called Hawaii. Hawaii didn't sound too bad after all the rain in Norway. And the board probably was pretty done with serving as a dinner table. And so I made my way down there as fast as I could. And was not disappointed. Some say that if you enjoy the ocean, you should clean it as well.
So now I'm off to the beach for an evening trash bag session. And if it's gonna get dark, gonna be hard. So let's see.
While cleaning the Danish beach, I had to think of Asta's words when I asked him about the most common plastic waste.
Fishing and fish farming. They are the main source of plastic pollution in coastal waters.
No matter what beach, fishing nets were always present. Now the next interview had some good news on that. A solution for fishing nets. Good stories ahead. There at Plastics, I got to witness the most bizarre landscape I had seen so far.
This is where we receive our input material. So we're very active in Scandinavia and most of Europe. Even from remote areas like Alaska or South Africa, we receive input materials, and that's really because we're the only commercially scaled solution for these types of waste streams. So what we do in the first step is we rough sort it. So it's generally the nets are HDPE, the ropes are PP, and so we separate it there. Then for the next production step, what we do is we take it inside into the inside gray zone, and there we fine fraction it. So there it's really about making sure that it's really just that one plastic type, about taking off all of those little joints that might otherwise pose a risk to the quality of our product, right? It's generally that we see a lot more material that is so knotted together that it just becomes very unfeasible to actually recycle and take apart. Yeah. Because plastic isn't just plastic. Comes in many different types, and mechanically you can't recycle them together, so you need to split them up. You will see here things that are repaired. So these are places where it's been knotted together, where there are two different things repaired, right? Yeah. And what you will see here is, for example, a piece of net that consists of two different materials that are incompatible with each other. You can very easily feel it as well if you want to. Yeah. There are some harder parts and there are some really soft parts, and that usually indicates two different plastic types.
Okay. And
right?
this is
That's not really recyclable because it's two different plastic types that are not compatible with each other. Yeah, exactly right. When we started back in 2012, there was no guideline for how you do it. There was no overview over, hey, these are all the different types of nets and ropes, you know, here you go, recycle them this way. We came up with a way that we could uniquely identify the different nets and ropes, So by how they're constructed, are they braided, are they twisted, what diameter are they, what color are they, how many layers do they have, what material are they made out of? So we fraction it into, HDPE, PP, and then as a final control step, we bring it through a metal detector to check that there's no metal on it. And this is basically where we transit from our gray zone to our green zone. The green zone is where we shred everything.
Now this is where the secret magic happened. And this was turned into this, new material for plastic production. I was ready for the Danish roads again. That would lead me to the next interview in the Netherlands. Denmark had been treating me well, with its free huts and easy weather. But after a nice and peaceful week, Denmark now had different plans for me. Somehow I made my way through the storms, into Germany. And here I found a trash friend to make it all feel better.
It's a wild Pikachu! Woohoo!
I was probably the happiest man on earth. Until a few days later.
So big issue, the tent is leaking like crazy. And waking up in a layer of water at night is just really, really bad.
It's at these moments a man has to think about survival. Call his parents, cry like a little baby, and it will all be alright.
Hello! This is team evacuation. Yeah.
Off to the Netherlands for a new tent and a day of much needed rest. With a new tent and renewed energy, I was ready for cycling my home ground, the Netherlands. The land of cows and flat roads. From the bike, I started to look at these familiar landscapes with different eyes. And the best thing about being home, familiar faces, aka the girlfriend.
Ik wilde zeggen, well-deserved break. Hij slingert ook. Zie je me dood hebben.
Hoe vond je het gaan?
Now, it wasn't all pain and strife, but still, in the end,
I'm done cycling.
Charlotte went back to work, and my trip took me to Amsterdam. Trash on the ground can be cleaned with some effort, But once it ends up in the water, things get a lot harder. So how do you prevent trash in the city's canals from flowing into the ocean? Here in the capital of the Netherlands, I would soon find out.
I'm standing here in Amsterdam next to something I think is absolutely brilliant. They placed a so-called bubble barrier in the canal, which is a screen of air bubbles that float up to the surface. The plastic in the canal doesn't go through and doesn't enter the ocean over there, but floats up to the surface and is being collected on the sides. And as you can see over here, boats can go straight through, animals can go straight through, and it's just the plastic that's being collected.
My next interview would take me to The Hague. Here I found Floating Plastic Cities by artist Caroline Adriaanse. It made me realize we use so much single-use plastic on a daily basis. In our households, at work, or when we go out for dinner. But this last thing can be done differently. Let's head to the beach restaurant, The Shoal, to talk about this with Manos from the Surfrider Foundation, Netherlands.
So Surfrider is a non-profit organization with a purpose to protect our rivers, lakes, coastlines, waves with different forms and different campaigns. We are doing a lot of cool stuff to protect our playgrounds. Yeah, that's it.
So we're sitting here at a restaurant, The Shore, because you have this campaign, Ocean Friendly Restaurant campaign. What is this about?
So it's a campaign that we just started in the Netherlands here. The campaign's purpose is to help restaurants transition to more sustainable restaurants, to tackle actually the plastic pollution at source, and then in the end create like a network of restaurants, of like-minded restaurants, to influence the whole food service industry. There's a big list of criteria basically. So one of the main is like no single-use plastic in the plates that you are having as a restaurant to be like either organic or locally sourced. You should have at least one vegetarian option. In the Netherlands we just started now and we have like 2 restaurants at the moment. I think in the US there are like more than 500 and in Europe there are around 50 restaurants right now I think. But yeah, we want to make it bigger. I want to create a map in the end that people like me and you can actually see where these ocean-friendly restaurants and be able to go and visit them.
After so much talking about food, I ate my last Dutch toast with hagelslag and headed on to the southern neighbors. Belgium, 4,000 kilometers behind me, which also meant Clean Hub had prevented 4,000 kilograms of plastic from entering the ocean in India. The Belgian coastline is a bit of a concrete jungle, but I did find art shaped like huge trash cans, and more importantly, I bumped into a huge inspiration. Meet Aaron Fabrice de Kisangani, beachcomber, educator, and most of all, a profoundly kind individual.
Dat is allemaal plastic voor educatie.
In Oost-Duinkerke, he takes me to the beach.
Dus ik had onlangs een foto van mij gepost op Instagram met een plastic kostuum. Ja. En die plastic kostuum heb ik gemaakt met allerhande zaken die ik heb gevonden op strand. Maar dat kostuum, dat woog meer dan 20 kilo. Ik heb daar de hele nacht meer dan 9 uur mee rondgehaald. Ik was kapot, maar ik heb wel heel veel mensen kunnen bereiken daardoor.
Aaron shows me nature.
Veel kwam. Veel kwam.
Plastic. And with a good Belgian beer, he shows me some of his most interesting natural finds. Whale bones, the tooth of a seal, or a prehistoric shark. But it is in the basement of this bar where he keeps his non-natural finds.
Als ik kleine stukjes plastic vind, dan neem ik dat mee en dan stop ik dat in een zak. En dan sorteer ik dat hier op kleur. Dus dan neem ik dat mee, dan maak ik een mozaïek op strand. En dan run ik dat weer op.
I could have stayed for days in the company of Aaron and his stories. But I had to take the train to Brussels to hear the other side of the story. In the city of the European Parliament, I would speak to Mineral Waters Europe, who represents many companies that sell a product that I so often found during my cleanups: plastic bottles.
There is a generalization about plastics, because plastic is a material, but it's a family of different polymers. So the generalization, obviously, to those who use PET is not fair. What is fair is that there is a big problem in terms of collection and what we do after collection of this material, and this needs to be corrected. In a monomaterial nature, so like the PET, glass or aluminium, with the deposit refund system you can collect all these three that I just mentioned. Is it being collected for recycling? In some countries which have deposit refund systems, pretty much so. In other countries, very little and is not very effective. The second thing is, what do you do with this collection? You need to put it back into the bottle. Those bottles can lead to a toy, can lead to a textile. For us, that's not enough. We want the materials back so we can put them back in our bottles and close the loop, which means less emissions for the environment.
I had to ask about bio-based materials. Wouldn't that be a viable alternative?
The question with bio-based is bio-based based on what? If it is corn-based, then there is the issue that we had in 2009 with biofuels. You make a farmer energy farmer instead of food farmer, and we export the problem outside of Europe for Europe's needs. But also there is the disposal side, and what do you do, in which bin this needs to be located, because if you put it in the same bin and goes to mechanical recycler, then you will have a problem. The solution is not to move to bio-based everything until we have bio-based which is not in competition with our needs for food. So we wait for the third generation and something that doesn't come from edible ones.
The interview definitely emphasized the complexity of the matter. But now it was time for a new country, La France. Home to endless and endless rows of perfect waves. Or, as it turns out, home to endless days of rain. But on the bright side, there were as many bakeries as there were raindrops. And it sure has a beautiful coastline. Or as the French say it, la mer est vraiment belle. But sadly also filled with a crazy amount of plastic.
So I've just cleaned a stretch of a few meters here in France, and the bag is already full. So I'm gonna get another bag and just keep cleaning, but it hasn't been this bad before on the trip. There's the fishing nets, there's the plastic bottles and everything you use at home. There's the polystyrene, lots of polystyrene, almost every pebble on this beach seems polystyrene. There's the small bits, there's the chemicals, and there's all the kinds of things I don't even know what it is, but it's a lot.
In all honesty, beaches like this were surely depressing. But when the sun came out again, everything seemed easier. Even my laundry got to dry. best thing, there was an actual chance of surfing in the sun. "5,000 kilometers, and the board had mostly been used as a dinner table. Now it was time to put it to its proper use. The thing with surfing is, you got to get lucky with the waves. And in the surfing mecca of France, there weren't many waves to be found. Instead, it had another surprise for me.
So I drove like crazy just to get there, just for the waves. Instead, I found plastic everywhere. Like this beach, there's all these tiny, colorful bits everywhere. It's different than the other beaches. This is all just the tiny stuff, so it's pretty hard to understand. It's beautiful out here. It's really wonderful, and there's so much plastic. Everywhere you look, it's plastic, plastic, plastic. When you see it from afar, it's a sand dune and you think it's nature, but when you look up close, it's just plastics, plastics, plastic. It also means cleaning, 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 so let's go.
It's great to stay positive, but sometimes you also just get really, really pissed.
The fuck is it, Owen? I've been spitting, shouting, and stepping on every piece of plastic on this beach, and I feel better. I'm still pissed, really pissed. I'm gonna clean more.
It was time for a more hopeful story again, so I rushed my way down to the next interview. On the border with Spain, I was about to visit a very special surfboard manufacturer. There's something strange about surfing. We float around on a plastic surfboard in an ocean that's already filled with plastic. Luckily, there's a green wave going through the surfing culture, and surfboard shapers are making changes for the better. Close to Biarritz, even the pedestrian crossings breathe surfing. And so it's the perfect place to visit No Talks and hear from Axel about a better way of making boards.
Donc la marque, elle s'est créée il y a 12 ans sur un constat. Donc Pierre et Benoît, les deux fondateurs, qui ont visité en fait un atelier de fabrication de planches de surf et ont tout simplement fait constater que c'était à l'opposé de ce qu'on pouvait imaginer en termes de produits utilisés, des déchets générés pour une planche, qui était le double du poids de la planche. Et les deux se sont dit, il faut qu'on fasse quelque chose, faut qu'on essaye quelque chose, il y a quelque chose à faire, on ne peut pas dans l'état laisser les choses comme ça. Et donc on crée la marque. Premièrement, on a travaillé sur tout ce qu'on pouvait faire de manière assez simple. Donc ça peut passer par déjà recycler les déchets issus de la production. Donc nous on travaille avec du polystyrène, donc on va recycler les chutes issues de la fabrication, de nos fabrications. Ça passe aussi par les chutes de liège, on essaie de les revaloriser. Les chutes de lin par exemple, elles sont réintroduites dans l'isolation thermique. Et après, dans le deuxième temps, on va essayer aussi d'utiliser un maximum de produits naturels. Donc le lin, le liège. Aujourd'hui, produire une planche made in France, donc conçue de A à Z ici, avec des matériaux nobles, naturels ou recyclés, c'est un coût relativement important. Ce qui veut dire qu'il faut accepter le fait que la marge qui est réalisée lors de la vente est plus faible que celle d'une planche classique. Et puis il y a aussi un savoir-faire. Forcément, ça fait plus de 10 ans qu'on travaille avec ces matériaux-là. Ça n'a pas été facile au début. On a changé plusieurs fois de méthode, plusieurs fois de matériaux. Il y a eu beaucoup de tests, de ratés. On a amélioré, ça c'est beaucoup d'itératifs. Et aujourd'hui, au bout de ces 10 ans d'expertise, on est heureux de pouvoir proposer des produits qui sont performants et qui aussi respectent du mieux qu'on puisse le faire l'environnement.
With all this talking about surfing, I really wanted to surf. But the surf check wasn't very hopeful. The ocean had gone from fully chill to absolute rage mode. So when the locals warned me to stay out, I didn't think twice. Off to Spain.
So here's a riddle. It's extremely windy, very rainy, and very steep. And everyone speaks Spanish. Where am I? I just crossed the border from France to Spain. Did over, I think, 6,000 kilometers now. 2 more to go, 2,000 more to go. Life is so easy in Spain.
Actually, the Spanish hills completely kicked my ass. But it was nothing to complain about, because it was also one of the most stunning rides I've had on the adventure. From a distance, these roads looked like heaven, but from up close, it was a bit more worrying.
Along the roads of Spain is way worse than I've had before. Everywhere it's plastic. It's pretty much a plastic road. If you look to the right, you see it everywhere. So I'm gonna do a little experiment here in Spain. I'm gonna do 1 exact kilometer of cleaning here down the road. I've already seen the kilometer. It's not gonna be good. It's a habit here to throw it out of the window of the car. So I set out to do 1 kilometer. This is not even 500 meters. I ran out of bags. Sad story, bad habits.
At times like this, I couldn't help but feel a little bit desperate. But then there was something to cheer me up. All along the way, I found traces of other people's cleanups. Some small, like my own efforts, and some so big it took my breath away. These were the moments that kept me going. But it was the coastline itself that reminded me why we clean up in the first place. Here at the wild Spanish coastline, I came to the inevitable realization. Cleaning is just not enough. We need to stop it at the source as well. It all starts with reduction, producing less. My next interview would be exactly about that. A surfboard shaper in Cantabria that doesn't use plastic and takes it back to the roots of surfing. The ocean had decided to stay in storm mode for a while. And when there's no surfing and the weather has gone from bad to worse, it's much better to get somewhere dry and just talk about surfing again. In the workplace of Kontiki, with the smell of sawn timber, Stefan tells me about his way of making boards.
The biggest surfboard company in California, Clark Foam, was closed by the government because of their pollution they caused. I was a big boss in the surf business, and the first time myself I realized what a surfboard is. I considered myself always eco-conscious, But actually I noticed that the surfboard it's a toxic toy, so it is toxic, the production, as well. For the shapers, it's toxic to breathe. And afterwards, once the board it's done, its life cycle is over, it's toxic waste. Back in the 30s and 40s, all surfboards were made out of wood because it was the material that was there. There was no foam available. So I get to know shapers in Ecuador who build wooden surfboards. And I thought, okay, this is actually the way to substitute the toxic PU foam by the light balsa wood. It grows really fast. It's more dense than the foam, and like this you have less pressure dings, and it's more durable. One thing is to make a surfboard out of natural materials, and another thing is to make a product that lasts long. This is also very important, to have a sustainable product, to make it repairable, to reuse it, to give it to your children, to the next generation, and keep on using it. There's no product that does not pollute. Even the wooden surfboards, they pollute. I mean, every product has an impact, but the idea is to minimize the impact as much as possible. And I think it's a struggling, everyday struggling. I mean, me, you, everyone around should struggle. And the first step actually is to be conscious what you're doing. I mean, it's not bad if you drive by car, but be conscious what impact it has, and then try to struggle every day to improve. And sometimes I can't do it, or I don't want to do it because I'm too lazy, I don't have the money, or I have other excuses, or it's just too comfortable. But I'm conscious about it, and I say, okay, today I'm too lazy, but maybe tomorrow I give it another try.
With the final interview behind me, it was time to make my way to Lisbon. With cheap good coffee around every corner, this was bound to be a great ending of the trip. All that was left was to cycle and clean my way down to Lisbon, the finish line of this trip. To help me celebrate it, there were even days with sunshine. By the time I reached Lisbon, I finally had time to reflect on the crazy adventure it had been. Over the course of 135 days, I had cleaned just as many bags and drove over 8,000 kilometers from the north to the south of Europe. In turn, cleanup had recovered over 8,000 kilograms of plastic, preventing it from entering the ocean in India. This Recycle Surfari had seen epic surf spots, but not a lot of surf. Instead, a hell of a lot of cycling. I slept at the most unexpected places and experienced the wildness I had never seen before. Each day I found more plastic than I could ever have imagined. But most of all, I set out to find out what is being done in Europe to save the ocean. And wasn't disappointed. Artists who make beauty out of waste. Cleaners who educate the next generation. Builders who search for alternative materials or take it back to the roots. New technologies to clean or to recycle what is already there. Maybe you feel like just another drop in the ocean. But there wouldn't be an ocean without the drops. It's us tiny individuals together who created the problem in the first place. So it's us, together, who can make a massive impact for the better as well. This world is too precious to let it go to waste.